the okay. So I felt like a weight was really lifted. However, I want to say that the best thing that I could have done was to have met Dr. Sellers, which I met her, and I'm going to say by divine intervention at a conference that I was at, the Association of Black Nursing Faculty. If you don't know anything about that, please look them up. Association of Black Nursing Faculty is not only for Black nursing faculty, it's for everybody, but that's the original name. And they are an amazing group. But moving on. So I suffer really bad with test anxiety. That was my journey. And that's why I waited so long to take the CNE. When I finished my PhD, I had promised I would never do anything else that had to do with the test, okay? And then I met Dr. Sellers and I told her that I had wanted it, I had looked into it, but I was so fearful to take it because of my anxiety. So for those of you who suffer for test anxiety, I feel your pain. But I will say this, not only did I did the CNE in 60 days, and not only did it help me with my test anxiety, I really believe it helped me master it, okay? And for a number of reasons. One was the way the material was presented allowed me to decide what plan was going to work best for me as a study plan. I really stayed with the two books, the Caputi and the Billings and Halstead, because my anxiety sometimes makes me be all over the place and studying everything. So in any case, I tried to stay with those two books. I did read the Billings first, and then I would go back and look at Caputi. Now, I read all of the test blueprint information that both Dr. Sellers had and the information from NLN, but she knows that because maybe my anxiety or whatever, I just decided after I was reading certain portions, any muddy point I wanted to fix, I just ended up reading the whole Billings book. I'm going to tell you from the beginning to the end. I just did. But it helped me hone in on what I really needed to hone in on. The other thing is I struggled with the way that the questions were written. Okay. And she knows that. And that's because my background, I also, as a little side thing, I used to write questions for NCLEX, the actual NCLEX exam, and I also did live reviews for a company. So I'm very skeptical about the way questions are presented. And I felt as though the way the questions were written kept throwing me. But I had to take Dr. Sellers' advice and remember that I can't rewrite the question. I just have to think NLN. Like, how was NLN thinking and what is best for the students? What would I do that was best for the students? And that's the way I attack the questions. So I will tell you this, be very familiar in the areas of Boyer's, knowing the difference between affective, cognitive, psychomotor, knowing those learning strategies, the differences between the passive and the active really helped me. And I will tell you something funny. When I was taking the test, and sometimes I would get, caught on those last two, I could hear your voice in my head, Dr. Sellers, saying, and if she hasn't said this already, she will, don't be a sage on the stage. Be a guide by the side, okay? And so some of those things, believe it or not, fit into that pattern because I was saying, okay, I don't want to answer doing what maybe my university does or maybe what I think is good for our pre-license program or post-license program, those types of things. I just thought NLN straight across nursing. The same thing with the test analysis, because I don't really do a lot of exam analysis anymore because we don't have pre-licensed programs at my university in nursing, but make sure you know it, okay? The main thing I want to tell you is that I did the same thing that I always tell my students when I'm doing reviews, and that is to do a lot of questions. So I did all of the questions in the Caputi book. I did every single chapter of questions. I did take the SAE. And last but not least, I took my own advice of reading the question twice. Okay, reading the question twice before I ever looked at the answers. And that's what I always tell the students. And I utilized the same strategy of 1 minute and 34 seconds per question. That's the way I timed myself out. So I did that. I don't go back and change answers. That's something I never did because I've learned that you tend to change it to the wrong answer. So I just would spend that time on it. I didn't flag it. I just read it until I really got the gist of it, looked for those keywords, landed on the answer, and moved forward. So that's really the best things that I can tell you. Just stick with it. And then the last most important thing is I am a believer. And so I knew that this was in God's hands. My anxiety would sometimes take the flesh of me, but Dr. Sellers told me something that I do anyway, but I just didn't think about it because my mind was clear and not clear at the time. But what I did was I just held on to a scripture. Okay. And the scripture was, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And every time I got nervous, that's what I thought about. When I walked in that testing center, and believe it or not, I had to take the test at the university where I work in the testing center with the people that I knew. So anyway, I walked in there though, and I said, the devil is a liar, because I'm walking in here with victory and I'm coming out victorious. So it made me laugh because the way that you saw at the end of the movie, right, with the last clip you showed, honestly, that's really how I felt. And you know that old saying, you have to find a closet. I had to go in the bathroom and just do a holy dance. So I did, and I didn't care if the students was coming in there. Right? But that's the best thing that I can tell you. The questions on the test really were pretty straightforward if you knew the information. That I will say. There was a couple of them that will kind of throw you, but familiarize, don't memorize.
Exactly. Well, that is exceptional, Dr. Alexander. Please give her another round of applause. Virtually.
And I plan to stay connected to Dr. Sellers. She's not getting rid of me.
Yeah. Well, we want to continue the relationship. And, you know, that's what we say here, Dr. Sellers Educate. It's about the relationship. It's not about showing up for review class. We are here with you until you are successful, no matter how long that takes. And as I mentioned earlier, the only way you won't pass is if you quit.
Right.
If you quit. And so much of what Dr. Alexander has said is really what we have seen consistently help others be successful on the CNE exam. Immersing yourself in the content, but also one other really important thing she shared, there were so many pearls, but it's figuring out what works best for you, because we all learn differently. And you know your gaps best. So even though we don't want you to read, you know, the 500 pages of Billings and Halstead, if you feel like you need to do that to increase your confidence and your competence, then by all means, be very strategic, manage your time well. And the big plug that we're putting in more now than ever before is not to use any other resources, because it creates a distraction. And there's no need. The exam writers have already told us those are the two major books that they use. The only other one they use is for exam analysis. There's a different textbook. I think they use McDonald or either Orman. So that's what I would say is just make sure you're being clear about your 7-week study plan, your 12-week study plan, whatever that looks like, but you're spending that dedicated time to close your knowledge gaps. And then, Dr. Alexander, just one question I have, as you reflect on your journey, is there anything you would have done differently now that you've been successful, now that you have been able to overcome some of those barriers and that's all they were just barriers that you successfully were able to remove? But is there anything as you reflect that you would have done differently that you want to share with the group?
You know what? I don't think so. Because I probably still, at first I said to myself, would I come back and say to myself, I shouldn't have read that whole book? But no, because I will say you have to know your learning style. That's very, very important. And honestly, my learning style is actual visual and kinesthetic. But in order for me to get that visual picture, I write down a lot of stuff and I use colors. And I found that when I was, and I told Dr. Sellers this, when I was trying to just go through the snippets of the pages, it wasn't connecting for me because I needed to read the whole thing and then write out what I thought was important. So would I go back and do that again? Yes, I would. And that's what I think. You have to find what works for you. And I think an advantage of doing that, to be honest with you, was I realized a lot of that stuff I was already doing and have been doing for the longest time, but I just couldn't coin names on it all the time. You know, like even concept mapping. When somebody mentioned about the students struggling with concept mapping, I actually came through nursing school in the early 80s. That's how long that journey's been that I should have done that CNE. But anyway, I graduated in the early 80s. And funny enough, I went to school in New York, if you didn't hear that accent. And the community college I went to used concept mapping from the very beginning. but I would not have known that was really called concept mapping. But that's all I ever knew. So I struggled when I became an educator as to how do you teach these students with, how do you teach them without concepts? You're teaching content. Oh, that's so confusing. Like, let's just make a concept map. So I met the resistance of faculty members. So what I think happens is when you use concept mapping, it needs to be an individual thing by itself and structured throughout your curriculum, because they struggle when you start using passive learning like lectures and then want them to do concept mapping too. That's what I found. So I think that what this did for me was help me to re-examine my own curriculum, re-examine new ways of knowing for students. And I spoke to a couple of my colleagues that I'm a director of nursing, and I was at a community college before that. And all of them, I want to say, that were at the community college went on and took their CNE and passed.
Oh,
and I was just talking to one of them the other day when I took the test, and they said, Karen, are you for real? We passed because of everything you taught us. You were a transformational leader. And they didn't have all the resources, just like you said. That was another reason why I didn't do it right away. There was really no good resources other than the LN blueprint. And at that time, it was only Dr. Billings that was doing the
review,
I guess, the little videos. And I told you, I'm not a auditory person, and that's nothing to discount her, but if you have a monotone voice, I can't listen to it. So it just didn't help me. And they utilized that, but they told me that all they did was utilize that to reinforce the coin names of the way that we had always delivered the curriculum. So that made me feel good. So they made me feel good the other day, telling me it was just a matter of time, that you just needed to go on and do it and get it over with.
Exactly.
So y'all go get your stuff. Y'all are going to do this. Listen to what Dr. Sellers is telling you. Watch the videos. Oh my God. I watched those videos until I could almost recite it. And I told Dr. Sellers I got in trouble with my 42-year-old daughter because I went to go visit her and take care of her in Atlanta when she had surgery. And, I would take care of her and then wake up like 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock and study. And her and my 16-year-old granddaughter decided to sit me down and tell me about how, why are you studying so much? You're already a nurse. Like, you should be able to just take this test. And I told my granddaughter, so that's how you do your grandmother. You just tell on me that I've been up at 2 o'clock studying. So yeah, I lived and breathed this information, but it's worth it. It's like NCLEX, right? We did what we had to do to pass NCLEX. This is just a reminder of that. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And walk in there, take your time, read the questions, look for the keywords, land on it, and move on. It's just, if you're not sure, it's just one question. Just keep going.
That's excellent advice. It's just one question. Keep going. I so agree. And hopefully your family celebrated with you, because I'm sure when you came out, you called them right away.
Oh my gosh. I was shaking, first of all, because, at the end when it says you have to put in, I understand. I was like, oh my God. But the same time that I put that in, I guess the testing proctor realized that I was finished because I was just sitting there. So I was typing it in. And so when she came into the room to tell me, I guess, that I could leave the headphones or whatever, that's when the results popped up. I hadn't even seen it yet. And then I turned and I saw pass and I was just frozen there. And I was like, just stop for a second, because I don't hear nothing you saying. Let me just breathe for a minute. I was the first one in to take the test, and other people taking the test. I was the last one out. I had the longest test, so that made it worse. But it was all good. We are celebrating. As a matter of fact, my husband of 43, soon to be 44 years, is amazing mentor, an amazing person. Every time I would do one of those tests at the end of the book, I would come and tell him what I got. He said, you already got this. It's good. It's good. So anyway, fast forward, I am leaving tomorrow night on a Mediterranean cruise out of Istanbul. So that is my gift from him.
Oh, how amazing. And I enjoyed meeting your husband in Biloxi. So tell him I said hello as well. He clearly was your number one supporter.
That's
because
right.
He encouraged you. I remember that. He encouraged you to do it.
That's right. That's right.
Basically, he said what my husband says all the time. It's a no-brainer. Just do it.
Yep. And he sure did. So, and even when I told him about the different packages, he was like, just go for the top one. That's it. Thank you, Anne. Thank you all. And yeah, just do this because Dr. Sellis is amazing. And I told her I'm going to spread her word everywhere. Hopefully I can make a connection. Look, I'll even teach for you if you want me to. I am so engaged in this, and you will see more and more of me. I'm not going to disappear on you.
Yay. Yes. And we love when our colleagues come back that have been successful on this journey and partner with us to provide really meaningful content from a personal perspective to our community. So absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr.
So keep me in mind, and thank you all so much. And I'm going to go back to finish packing.
Yes, go pack. Enjoy your cruise. And thanks.
It's 15 days.
Enjoy every single moment of it. You just
will.
And what a wonderful time to celebrate everything, all the accomplishments. I'm glad that your daughter is doing well as well. I know, that there can be competing priorities, shall we say, and you want to storm through all of them.
And that's one other thing I wanted to say about the 2 o'clock in the morning. You got to be committed to what you wanted to do. At the time that I started this, I have 3 colleagues, myself and 2 other, and we wrote a master's program to start in the fall. We did 3 publications and put in a grant, and I was studying for this. So now I'm going to reach back and help my colleague get hers, which was my promise to her, so that I could take some of the things off the plate that she took on for me. So
yes. Oh, that's wonderful. And look at you giving back. But that's the thing too about us in our profession. We're servants at heart. So that's why we're so committed to helping you be successful, is because we know the investment you make in others. So it's the least that we can do to support you, to give you help you have the confidence and competence so that you can be successful. Thank you so much, Dr. Alexander. Any other questions that you all have for Dr. Alexander? If not, we will let her go pack. Thank you so much. And I'll see you back, Dr. Alexander.
Yes, I'll see you on the boot camp when I come back.
Excellent. All right. You all have
good luck to all of you, and blessings to all of you.
Thank you. Blessings to you too. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.